Song by Buffalo Springfield, a blast for the past, appropriate for today.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's bad lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and they carrying signs, mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Paranoia strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. You better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop now. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Stop. What's that sound?
And we join our hearts and minds in remembering and in honoring George Floyd of Minnesota. Your nation failed you. Rest in peace. Breonna Taylor of Kentucky. Your nation failed you. Rest in peace. Ahmaud Arbery of Georgia. Your nation failed you. Rest in peace. Tony McDade of Florida, your nation failed you. Rest in peace. Sisters and brothers, we have often failed each other. Let us come together in solidarity and in peace. Today, our gathering song is another song from back in the 60s. You will remember it. Turn, turn, turn. And please join us in singing from your home. To everything, turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And the time to This is for today. Do you know what it means to love? To feel your heart filled with such joy and gratitude that you cannot contain it, that it has to bubble over out to all those souls around you. It is that steadfast, glorious feeling of well-being, and it's the feeling of being one with all life. At this point, all fear, all hatred, jealousy, envy, and greed disappear when love is there. For there is no place for those thoughts, destructive forces, in the presence of love. When your heart is cold and you feel no love, do not despair, but look around and find something or someone you can love. It may be some very small thing, but that small spark can ignite your whole being until love is a flame in you. Only a small key, a gentle key, can unlock such a heavy door. Love is the key to every closed door. Learn to use it until all doors have been opened. Start now. Start right where you are. Open your eyes. Open your heart. See a need. Answer it. Join us in the first two songs, Blowing in the Wind. Turning of the World, 1982, Ruth Pelham.
Move this world along, and our lives will fill the echo.
to everybody. Today we'll be speaking a lot of common ground. How do we find common ground? Is there a common ground? I believe there is. But we must search diligently. So, coming together in prayer, uniting our minds and hearts. If you're at home, place your hand on your heart. We are connected by our hearts. Oh, Holy One of 10,000 names, you have given all peoples one common origin. We ask to know that we are all indeed together. Fill the hearts of all people with the fire of your love and with the desire to ensure justice for all. Justice by sharing the good things you have given us. May we secure equality for all our brothers and sisters throughout the world. May there be an end to division, to strife, and to war. May there be a truly new dawn of human society, which is built on love and peace. You have 10,000 names, Spirit who moves through all things. Our world is in need of healing. We can hear all creation groan alongside of us. Help each of us to acknowledge our role in causing this pain. Forgive all of us the parts that each of us play in these systems of oppression and inequality. We have been silent when we should have spoken. We have lacked the kind of empathy which moves us into action. We have shut our eyes and ears to the cries of our sisters and brothers of color. We have too often met hate with hate, suffering with indifference. We have pointed fingers to avoid seeking justice, and we are still pointing fingers. Show us a new way to begin. Show us a common ground. Help us change this world by changing our hearts. Today we hold on to the hope for this broken world. And we ask that each one of us be moved, be cleansed, and be renewed, so that all things will bring peace to all. Amen. So take a minute and put your hand on your heart, and in a minute we're going to sing Spirit of Life as I move to the piano. We come together now in a prayer for our community. This is a prayer that Rohr often uses. Oh, great love, thank you for living and loving in us and through us. May all that we do flow from our deep connection with you and all beings. Help us become a community that vulnerably shares each other's burdens. Listen to our heart's longing for the healing of our world. And at this time, I ask you at home and listening, take a quiet space, name all those individuals, groups, causes that you want to lift up. Knowing, Holy One, that you are hearing us better than we are speaking, we offer all these individuals, groups, situations up to the true light. We offer these prayers up to your holy light and love. Amen. And at this time, I don't know if you can hear it, all the birds are singing outside. We give our prayers for all creation. And we have an assistant, he usually falls asleep by now, but Jake comes every week. And he comes because he's getting treats. This helps us remember all the other beings. In Temenos, there's beautiful trees, all sorts of animals, and beautiful, come here, Jake. Beautiful, beautiful, and he's very handsome today. He has a new haircut, a new bandana. This helps us remember that there are other universes other than our own, right? In Jake's world, there's peace. So, closing our eyes, we say, Hail Mother, who art the earth, hallowed be thy soil, rocks, flora, that nourish and support all life, that walks, that runs, that burrows, that slithers, that flies, that swims. Support all life on this planet. Blessed be thy wind that gives us breath, and thy waters that quench, bathe, and refresh all living things. Holy, holy earth, as one we praise your majesty, grace, and wonder. Amen. And to Father Sky, prayer that Jesus left us with. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And just continuing in your silence and in your heart. Only one reading today that most of you probably know the first two sentences, but it's a little longer than that. By Rumi. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to read that one more time. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field, and I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in the grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, and even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. hold that, and we're going to sing one more song together. This song comes from the Unitarian hymnal. It's to the tune Wally Wally, or The Water is Wide, with lovely social justice words. So, in 1992, I was at a conference in New York put on by the Open Center and held at the big cathedral, St. John the Divine. And it was a conference, and I forget which state it was for. It's been a little long and my mind's a little rusty. But it was a conference and it was really about the politics of the poor. It was about a nuclear power plant that was going to be built out in the Midwest. And while many, many people wanted it for the energy, the tribes downriver were very concerned for the safety of their children and for what it was going to do for the waterways. And the EPA was there, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was there, the NRDC was there, which is why I think I went. I don't know how I got there, to tell you the truth, but I was there, and many, many tribes. And the morning started off with presentation from each group, you know, why they wanted it, why they didn't want it, and then it broke into utter chaos. Yelling, screaming, outside there were protesters from both sides. It got very, very uncomfortable. So finally somebody closed the morning session and sent us out to find lunch. So people did. You know, I was there by myself, and I remember wandering out, and I went to a park, and I saw some native elders, and they were giving up prayers. And so I kind of sat near them to hear their prayers, because I was not at all peaceful by then. I was riled up. I really wanted to go after somebody. But as I heard their prayers, it calmed me down. Then we were called back in, and the conference began again. And pretty soon it escalated. Name calling. And you know, very wonderful, intelligent, and I think even compassionate adults, but everybody started calling each other names. So finally, a native elder, and he was pretty old, he walked up on stage and everybody immediately became silent because they recognized his presence, a peace. And he sat down, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission was on one side, some tribal elders on another, and he said to them both, and he talked to the NRC first, and he said, why is it that you want to build this plant? And the spokesperson said, we want to build it. We want to have energy for the future. We want life to continue. And the elder said, okay. Then he asked the tribal elders, and there was a spokesperson, why don't you want this plant? And they said, because we want to ensure that there's a good future. So he paused and he asked both of them at the same time, and he said, who's the future for? And they both answered, our children. And there was silence in the room because everybody got it. And he said, see, my friends, this is where the dialogue begins. This is where it must begin. This is common ground. And in what's going on today in our world and in our nation, we're going to have to find that common ground. Again, and I suspect it's somewhat the same. We all want to ensure a good future for our children, for ourselves. But as that song said at the beginning, you know, what's going on here? What's going down? There's a lot, right? It's just as overwhelming. And I think each of us as individuals, we have to pull it back. We just have to pull it back into ourselves and do some self-examination as we can. Some people can't. You know, people that have lost people to violence, they are not in a position right now to pull it all back. They're grieving and they're angry, and systemic racism is hundreds of years old, so there's a lot of built-up anxiety. But what I want to say is, right now, we are living in a time where all of us, the whole world, has been on edge. There is a tiny little virus, tiny, and it's wreaking havoc on everybody. Probably the primary fear is that we're going to catch it and die. But most of us can't even admit that. We put it on something else. And the primary feeling of disease is that we don't know how to control it at all. So as this virus has progressed, many of us find ourselves without work. Some of us are very, very isolated, and we really aren't seeing people, so we're very lonely, very scared. Summertime conjures up so many images. People want to go play, they want to play at the beach, you want to go away, people want to go out to eat, all sorts of things. And people want to have money. People have lost significant incomes. So we're already on high alert. Our nervous systems, I'm not qualified here to go into the really good explanation on how our nerves are functioning, but they're on high alert. And almost anything that happens to us personally can become a trigger. Anything. And the murder of George Floyd triggered everyone. Everyone. And it has inflamed people. It's made us grief-stricken. And we're a world in shock. We're afraid, We're a little off-centered, and some people are totally lost. Now, social media has great benefit, but it also is just winding us all up. And unfortunately, our governments are winding us up too, depending on who and what you listen to. The murder of George Floyd is truly horrific on every part of our lives. It's hard to digest. And yet already we've distorted that reality. We distorted that reality because, using the word white privilege, because some of us are so much more privileged than we even know. And I've heard people saying, oh, it's horrible that innocent black man was killed, but destroying property has to stop. Now that sort of sounds good, right? Like, we don't want to do that. But that's a distortion. The true saying is, it's horrible that property is being destroyed, but killing innocent black people has to stop. Some of us, we are prioritizing the wrong part. The looting, the violence, the protest, they're just taking the eye off what the real problem is. Innocent people are killed for just being in the wrong place and the wrong color. And all of us that have grown up in white privilege, we don't even know that fear. I don't have fear when I walk out of my house that someone might shoot me because I do something odd. While I don't like getting stopped by the police if I'm driving, I don't have any fear that they're going to shoot me. None. And I didn't walk in these protests for a number of reasons, but I wouldn't really, walking in the protests, I wouldn't have that much fear because I'm white. We have to think about that. And to find common ground, we have to start understanding what everyone is going through. We have to understand it. We have to understand ourselves, because I find myself pulling back my need to speak several times a day because it isn't always nice what I want to say. And I have to pull it back. And I can get triggered very easily. And I think everybody else can. I heard somebody here that works here at Temenos say the other day, and it was very well said, because he had a little breakdown of sorts, but he said, I'm telling everybody they just have to not pay attention. I'm getting triggered. And it happens several times a day, and when I become centered again, I'm fine. And I think that's true. I think that's true of all of us. But unfortunately, a lot of us can't let it go, can we? Something happens and it goes boom, 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 boom. So we have to find common ground. And you have to think of common ground as a real place. Where is common ground? In common ground, say there's a circle on this floor here. To come into that circle, we have to leave all our baggage behind. All our stuff, all our preconceived ideas, our little prejudices, our big prejudices, our ideologies. To come into common ground is to come empty. And it's to come being ready to listen. And most of us, listening's a fine art. We would much rather talk. But we have to come ready to listen to each other. And hopefully, everybody comes into that place. And then we can begin dialogues. Our actions can flow from there. But I want you to think of when you were young. And this isn't for everybody, but you know, we all played in sandboxes at one time. And I have some toys here. Whoops, Jake's waking up. He thinks they're toys for him. watch kids in a sandbox. I love to, right now the kids aren't allowed to play in the sandbox at the park, but I really love to watch them. And I love to watch them when my son was younger. I also love to watch them when I was teaching, because you're in the sandbox and there's trucks of all different sizes, right? Here's a big truck. Here's a little truck, and they're moving along, and they play, and occasionally they hit, right? Well, they just turn and go another way. Not a big deal. And you'll often see kids, one's over here digging his little road, another one's over here digging his little road. Then another one comes in, and they weave in and out, and they do bump each other. But somehow, they don't attack each other. They're just playing peacefully. Now, occasionally, and it could be little trucks or big trucks, there may be two trucks. And one child or one truck really wants to be where the other one is. So they start bashing each other. You've seen it. Bashing it, putting it down. And, you know, from a distance it's kind of comical, but it's not. But as parents and as teachers, when we're in our space, we always let the children work it out first. We try that tactic. Because eventually, someone will see that hurting somebody else's truck and pushing this isn't solving anything. Sand's getting all over the place, and now all their highways are wrecked. So you can watch children, and a lot of times they come back to that. They will rebuild each other's sandcastles. Somebody takes their truck and smashes somebody's house. They may get mad, but later 2 or 3 others will come and help them rebuild. It's a natural process. But sometimes we have trucks again. I wish I had a big thing to play on. I like to play, actually. A truck comes that really batters this other truck. And finally the other truck gets mad. I'm scaring Jake, the dog here. The other truck gets mad and goes boom. And that's it. Everybody's crying, one's mad, and then a parent or a teacher may intervene. So when they intervene, they usually try to have people apologize to each other. They give them a timeout so they can go think. Sometimes they just take them home. That's the way it goes sometimes. Now, take it when children get a little older and they're doing the same thing, but now there's no parents or teachers around. Sometimes this will resolve itself because one person will take their toys and go home. They just won't play anymore. That's okay, actually. That's okay. Or these two people rile up everybody else, and everybody's taking sides. And pretty soon, the whole sandbox is ruined. And several toys are totally, whoops, hit the piano. Several toys have become totally destroyed. That seems to be what's happening here. Sometimes, when there are these confrontations or we're trying to come together, we bump each other all the time, right? We just bump into each other. And on a good day, we can let it go. This little one running into this one kind of bumps off and goes another way. But on a bad day, this bumps into this one gets mad, it escalates. And I would say we're all having bad days right now. We can't, when we bump into each other, we are really taking personal offense. And we are acting out in horrendous ways as individuals and as societies, and we just don't think straight. So what's the solution? One is everybody needs a timeout, right? You can gather your trucks and go home. And then we need to rebuild that sandbox. And then maybe we need to come back in. And we need to invite everybody in. Because that's the other thing about sandboxes. I had a lovely sandbox growing up. We we lived in a neighborhood that built a big pool for the neighborhood and a big sandbox, and everybody in that neighborhood was invited in, right? And we could even bring our friends when they came to visit. Except, and I remember this, I didn't know what it was called then, but I remembered I had a friend from school, and I'm going to change her name, Carol. And Carol was a young black girl. Now, she always came to my house to play. But one day, I guess my mother wasn't home, and I decided to take her down to the pool and the sandbox. Well, I took her down, and we sort of immediately, both of us felt everybody looking at us. Mothers called their children, and then pretty soon my mother came down, and I think somebody had called her, and she said, "You have to come home." And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because Carol can't play there." And I might have been 8 or 9. I was like, "Why can't Carol play there?" She goes, "She just can't." And I just remember stamping my foot and having a temper tantrum. Carol, though, put her head down. And she just walked home with my mother. I did too. And then after Carol had gone home, my mother said, they don't, she goes, we, they, because she didn't really hold that prejudice. They don't want black people there. And actually they didn't use the word black, they used the word colored, because that was the error. And, I still said, why? And I remember she said, well, I don't know. She said, but they're not allowed. So, if you can't understand racism, think about it. But if we're going to come to common ground, and let's say that common ground is a big sandbox, that sandbox has to be open to everyone. Our sandbox in our neighborhood was great, but it didn't invite all the other neighborhoods. And some kids, depending on where they lived, they didn't even have a sandbox. I had privilege to have a sandbox. I had privilege to have little trucks, little toys. We have to understand that. Those of us that have had privilege, we have to understand this. We have to start to invite everybody. So, when we invite everybody, it's different. But we will not all fit into this circle if we bring all our trucks with us, or all our toys with us. We have to come empty-handed, without baggage. These trucks carry a lot of belief systems, a lot of prejudices, a lot of distorted thinking, a lot of fears. And to come to common ground, there will not be enough room for us all to gather until we can let them go. We will not be able to listen to each other until we can let that stuff go. And that's where it's up to each individual. No government can force you to let go of your ideologies and your belief systems. No minister can force, no counselor, nobody can force you. You have to be interested enough in the welfare of your being, because to want to be peaceful and interested enough that you want to create that same thing for others. What I carry away from that sandbox incident when I was young was that I wanted Carol to be able to play in the sandbox. It was that simple. I didn't want her to have to hang her head and go home. I don't want somebody on the street to have to hang their head, be careful every way they walk, because they might be shot just because they're a different color. We have to want that for others. And that's a big change of heart. And to do that, we have to stop blaming others, right? We're hearing a lot of the blame game. When I look at Facebook, and on Facebook, I use Facebook mainly to write poetry about nature, or to put something for 10 minutes. I don't use it as a place to really express my views. except that I love this world. But I do read people's posts sometimes, and it's really amazing how many people and things we can blame our actions on and not take personal responsibility. We blame everybody. It's everybody else's fault. It's their fault because they're white. It's their fault because they're black. It's their fault because they're uneducated. It's their fault because they're a narcissist. It's their, it goes on and on and on. It's their fault because they're a Republican. It's their fault because we're a Democrat. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And that's what has to stop. Now, I'm not saying that we're having good models for this. This is pretty terrible what's being modeled on TV and in press conferences. I always say this, even when I was a teacher, don't let your children watch too much of the news. We want children to grow up wanting to be adults that know how to talk to each other and listen to each other and not call each other names. When we have people on TV calling each other names for how they look or how they think, or from a distance again, it gets a little comical, because it's amazing what we do to each other. That's all I'll say. And I'll say I've done it too. I have done it too. But fortunately, I'm not up on the big screen when that happens. So we have to take personal responsibility. We have to find the common ground. We have to create it. And then we need to invite everybody in to the common ground. And Marvin Gaye had a beautiful song that really asks those questions and says it in a gentle way, in a beautiful way. So we're going to close with this song now. The words are in your bulletin if you want to have them later. Great words. There's far too many of you dying. You know you gotta find a way to bring some love here today. Father, we don't need to escalate. See, war's not the answer, for only love can complete. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Picket lines and picket signs, don't punish me with brutality. yourselves, the creators of the sandbox, keepers of peace, the bringers of light, bringers of love. And just close your eyes, accept this benediction. All of you, you are bringers of love. You peacemakers, bearers of true light, life givers, you who bear living waters that quicken the hearts and enliven the spirits of weak and weary souls. You can be the breaker of chains. You can be the giver of hope. You can be the giver of hope who breathes life into the faint-hearted. You can lighten the eyes and gladden the hearts of the humble and gentle. For you are each the light of the world. You are the promise of all that will heal us. So as you go out into the world this week, be a bringer of light. Be a person who seeks and finds common ground. And also know that each one of you is extraordinary in so many, many ways. You are beautiful. You are essential to this world. So understand that about each person you see around each other. So go out in peace and joy. And no matter what kind of truck you drive, play nice. Amen.